Good morning, everyone. My name's Garry Davis from Specialist Share Education, and with me today is Alex Saunders. I've been getting an increasing number of questions from people about Bitcoin and about cryptocurrencies, and so this video is really to try and pull back the veil and give you more information on what Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are all about. Now, I must admit, I was a real skeptic of this through lack of knowledge. I saw the parabolic price charts and all the hype around Bitcoin as a great way to probably tear up a lot of money. But I spent 30 minutes on a call with Alex, and he completely changed my outlook on this. So I'm very pleased to be able to introduce someone who's extremely knowledgeable in this area, and he certainly got me asking different questions now. So now I'm asking questions like, how can we sensibly use Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies in a business-like manner? So over to you, Alex. Can you just give us a little bit of your background and how you got involved in cryptocurrencies in the first place?
No worries. Thanks for having me on, Garry. And yeah, there's plenty of people that have got questions about this stuff. So I guess for me personally, I got into shares a little bit when I was a bit younger. I lost half of my portfolio in the GFC, like a lot of people did, for my 21st birthday, and I sort of thought I can do better than that. And that got me interested in the money system and how the GFC works. And I guess that leads you down the rabbit hole. You start to learn about QE and money printing and what central banks do. And from there on in, I got a bit of an interest in precious metals and those things that a lot of that crowd, I guess, tend to get into. And that led me to read about Bitcoin in 2012, about what a digital currency is, I guess, and how it's limited in supply, almost a digital version of gold. A lot of people don't like to make that comparison, but it certainly is, it does have a lot of those aspects to it. So I guess that's how I discovered Bitcoin. Started getting a lot more into it in 2013, and then in the last year or two there's been a number of other cryptocurrencies that are now doing very different projects, but these are all based on blockchain technology. So that's probably the thing that we need to get your head around first, about why this is game-changing, sort of once-in-a-lifetime technology, I guess.
Okay. All right. So can you briefly explain what cryptocurrencies are and how they've started to go mainstream? I think that was the thing that you absolutely blew me away with, was the mainstream applications of this now.
So I guess, as I said, blockchain technology is different to most companies in the world these days. Have databases, houses of servers. So I think Facebook, Commonwealth Bank, any of these large corporations have all their computers housed, and it's a centralized database. Now, what cryptocurrencies that are based on blockchain technology, it's a decentralized ledger. And that means that everybody can have a copy of it. Everybody can have a say in how it works. There's no central authority. It can't be hacked because there's no one point of weakness. Everybody has a copy. So the first application, or the first invention of blockchain technology, was the use of it being a digital currency, and that's Bitcoin, which a lot of people have heard of. So that's just a digital currency that uses blockchain technology. It's distributed, so everyone has a copy, everyone has a say. It can't be hacked. If you've heard that Bitcoin's been hacked, it's just websites or individuals that haven't kept their passwords safe and that sort of thing. So Bitcoin itself has actually never been hacked. As you said, when we started to speak, you weren't aware how widely used. So in Australia, there's a number of websites now that will let you pay any bill in Australia with Bitcoin, or there's 10 different other cryptocurrencies now that they'll let you use. You can pay your groceries with a touch card, just like you do PayPass with your bank card. There's already companies out there using blockchain technology to do real-world projects that are completely different to the currency use case, which Bitcoin and a few other cryptocurrencies are using. So there's a lot of companies now using the blockchain technology as the backbone of their business, because it is just such a good model to use compared to these centralized models that we see.
Right, okay. Look, my view, and I know the view expressed by some others, is that governments and central banks will find a way to torpedo this because they would see it as a loss of control of the financial system. What's your view of that?
So the people that have designed blockchain technology and Bitcoin had that in mind when they developed it before 2008 and when they launched it in 2008 after the GFC. I guess they had that in mind. So the way it's designed through encryption and decentralization means that even if a government makes it illegal, it doesn't mean that I can't still send you on my phone. They've got no idea who's using this. It's all private and encrypted. I guess that's one way to think about it. But the other way is that a number of currency countries that have adopted it as a currency. So Japan, for instance, have made Bitcoin legal tender. Now, the businesses that accept Bitcoin in Japan have seen a huge uptick in business, and that's going to promote, GDP growth. So let's say that Greece or Venezuela, one of these struggling countries, due to central bank monetary policy, adopts Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, they're going to see a big uptick in business, and they're going to see innovation and young entrepreneurs move to that country. And then it's the nobody wants to be first, but then nobody wants to be last. So as soon as other countries start seeing tick up in GDP and innovation, they're going to want in. And we're already seeing that. For every country that makes it illegal or tries to push back and say, hey, we want to restrict this, there's one or two countries that are adopting it and seeing the benefits.
Right, okay. I guess things like peer-to-peer lending are now becoming mainstream. Is it correct to think about cryptocurrencies as a form of peer-to-peer transaction? Is that a bit too simplistic?
A little bit oversimplistic. It's definitely a peer-to-peer currency, but even, so peer-to-peer lending isn't on a blockchain, so it's not, verifiable and transparent and as secure. So anything that has that blockchain technology underlying it means that, it has a degree of transparency, it's verifiable, it's immutable, so it can't be changed. So it is a type of peer-to-peer, a way that we can all transact with each other, but a bit different to sort of current mainstream peer-to-peer lending models.
Right, okay. So how do you see the future unfolding for Bitcoin and then for other cryptocurrencies? And are there any particular ones such as Ethereum that you would look more favourably upon?
So Bitcoin is very much version 1.0 of what a blockchain can do and what a digital currency can do. As you said, we now have other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, which are very much version 2.0. So if Bitcoin's digital money, Ethereum is programmable digital money. So that opens the door to a wide range of applications. You can almost think of Ethereum as a...
Sorry, Alex, can you just explain what that means, programmable currency?
So with Bitcoin, I can send money from A to B anywhere on the planet, and I can just send that medium of exchange, some sort of value, whether that be 1 cent or $100 or $1 million, I can send you money. But programmable means that we can start to program in computer code and do all sorts of things on top of that application. So Ethereum, I guess it's a digital currency of sorts, or a digital platform. But all these young innovators now, there's hundreds of projects that have been launched on top of Ethereum. So the underlying it is this sort of digital means to do all these transactions between individuals or between computers or whatever. But there's now hundreds of projects being built on top of Ethereum. So that blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain, is the backbone. But there's all these unique individual projects that are being built on top of Ethereum, and that's why it's version 2.0. So Bitcoin blockchain you might think of as two-dimensional, and Ethereum is very much three-dimensional, and sky is the limit what computer coders and the young innovators can do. We're still at bleeding edge technology. Every day we have new projects that are doing fantastic things because you can now program functions into this digital money of sorts.
Yeah, yeah. Can you give an example of a project? What's an example?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a fantastic Australian project called Power Ledger. And what they're doing is making again, a decentralized model. So they're trying to decentralize the power grid. So if you've got some solar panels on your roof, Garry, and I'm your neighbour, you can sell that power to me and I can pay you, or your solar panels and my computer will just talk to each other and pay each other in cryptocurrency, microtransactions.
Wow.
Because there's no middleman, and that's probably the point I should drive home, that all these blockchains allow for cutting out of the middleman, and that just greatly reduces costs. So there'll no longer be an energy company that needs to take a cut or a bank that needs to take a cut. In that example of Power Ledger, you'll just be able to sell me your excess power. I'll pay you in a bit of cryptocurrency. That's just one example of this decentralized model.
Yeah, that was the part where you really converted me is where these applications are going. So sorry, just going back, I interrupted you on where you see the future of Bitcoin going and perhaps preferences for other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, so I mean, in a lot of ways now it's very much becoming hyped. So you have to be very careful, as with any investing. People know that there's millions of dollars washing around this space, and there's hundreds or thousands of projects launching. So again, with your share investing, you've got to be careful to do some due diligence to pick the quality projects before you just throw your money at anything. But I think Bitcoin's very much still got that first mover advantage, limited supply. It's seen as a store of value. Market cap, I mean, we'll talk about the price a little bit, but people every year say that Bitcoin's in a bubble because it's gone up so much in percentage terms. But the fact is the market cap is still only $100 billion. And we look at the market cap of gold, 7 trillion. It's a long, long way off. And with the other day, Google searches for buy Bitcoin surpassed Google searches for buy gold. And yet it's 1/7,000th of the market cap. So.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. So are there any others that are worth watching, or you'll pass on that question at the moment?
I guess there's a number of good projects. So I'm a big fan of that Australian one, Power Ledger. We now have another example would be decentralized online gambling platforms and casinos. So the house will have nearly zero edge. So you and I can go to the casino and bet black and red all day, and the odds will always be 50-50. Whereas a lot of people now, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, online gambling and poker, but you don't actually know the odds. Whereas all these transparent blockchain models, you can verify that the house pays out the exact percentage that it should. The odds are all perfect. I'm trying to think of some others, Garry. I don't want to overwhelm you because there's so many fantastic projects out there. So people building a decentralized internet that you'll be able to hook into anywhere on the planet. A number of blockchains. So the Australian stock market are experimenting with putting everything on a blockchain.
Okay. Well, now that you bring that up, I thought it might be timely just to show a chart of Bitcoin. I might make a few comments as far as I see it as a normal, so I'll just bring that up now. As far as I would normally analyse a stock, and then I'd like to get your view on it, because I think from the questions that I get, people are wondering, are cryptocurrencies going to behave like stocks behave? So this is a chart of Bitcoin on a daily chart basis, and right over on the left-hand side here is early February this year. So that's about 8 or 10 months worth of price data there, and we can see the substantial acceleration. It was trading at around about $1,000 back here in the first quarter, which is when really I became aware of it, when it was fluctuating between $500 and $1,000. And then I thought that it was just so speculative that I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. And now here it is. It's been as high as 7,000. So just shows you how much I knew or didn't know. So this is how I would analyse it. And I must say that it's behaved itself from a technical standpoint extremely well. So I would just draw a simple line of support and resistance across there, which is where the price got to initially, backed off a little bit before it exploded higher. Interestingly, came back, exactly touched that support line and bounced extremely hard off that. So this looks to me like it's something that is responding to all the normal technical patterns. If we do something like just put a standard Fibonacci retracement scale on this, which is just a standard technical way of looking at price patterns, we've done an exact 61.8% retracement, which validates this level here. So that's all good. We then have another run up. And so now I'm looking, we've certainly gone parabolic during this phase. And so now I'm looking, well, where could be an entry? So this gets back to what I said at the start, and that is I'm now asking a different question, and that is how can I do this in a sensible business-like sort of manner? So then from a technical trading point of view, I look at these levels here around about 6,000, 5,400, 4,800, etc., as potential ways of trading this with all the normal sort of, risk and trade management rules that a good trader should always have. So that's how I would see it. My view is that this is behaving technically very, very nicely, which is important because it introduces a degree of predictability. So how do you see it? And do you see it the same way, that there is a technical resemblance to stock price movements?
Very much so. And those patterns and those fib retracements that you've just highlighted there, that's been happening since it was a few cents. So everyone said it was bubble. Everyone said it was a bubble when it ran to $1, and then we have a sharp correction. And then it ran to $30 and we have a sharp correction. And so this has been happening, this cycle and this pattern, for 5 years. Now, these markets are very immature, so they're very volatile. There's no market stabilizing mechanism. So we're only just hearing now about the launch of Bitcoin futures in December by the CME in America. But there's no options. There's no market stabilizing mechanisms. It's very hard to value these, so we don't have value investors stepping in at highs and lows. So these markets are extremely volatile, and they definitely overshoot to the upside and the downside. And again, there's a number of people that often wait for these big pullbacks, and one of my favourite sayings is sometimes there's no gentleman's entry. So sometimes you've just got to bite the bullet, and yeah, it is running hard. It might drop 40% after you buy it, but the fact is it continues to charge higher. And my view is very much that market cap I spoke about of $100 billion is nothing once it gets into that stock market world, and we have futures, we have an ETF hoping to be online next year sometime. So all those measures are just going to see so much more money than $100 billion flow into Bitcoin. So again, as you said there, 5,500, it almost touched that the other day, that 50% retracement perfectly, depending on what data you've pulled up there, Garry. So in the stock market world, maybe that sort of correction would take a few days or a few weeks, but in the Bitcoin world, we have these spike downs in a day or two, and it might only be there for an hour, and that's your opportunity to get in, and it takes off again. So again, I don't know. Now's a better time to buy than at $8,000 last week. Whether or not it's the bottom, I'm not sure. But unless something dramatically bad happens, and I don't see that on the horizon, I definitely think that Bitcoin continues to charge higher, as do other good cryptocurrencies such as Ethereum that I mentioned. Okay,
one final question. For those that have never traded Bitcoin, what sort of what platforms are available? And I have read that there are some scams out there that where you could lose your money by putting it with lookalike kind of platforms.
Yes. So if people want to head over to my YouTube channel, that's just called Nuggets News. I made a video last week about how to buy Bitcoin safely in Australia, and I recommend 5 websites that have been around for years that are very safe and secure. But once you buy your Bitcoin and you have your head around how it all works, I recommend that you buy a hardware wallet. It's a little USB-like device, and you store your Bitcoins on that offline entirely. So even though these websites, these Australian websites that I recommend are very safe and secure, there's nothing safer than looking after them yourself offline entirely. And be very careful. I've got links to all those websites in the description of that video, but be very careful, because if you go to Google and search buy Bitcoin, there's a number of scams that can pop up, or phishing sites that look like they're spelt right. Scammers are out there to get you, because there's no way to get your money back in this cryptocurrency world if you make a mistake. But again, it only takes 5 or 10 minutes to learn how to do this safely. And I'd encourage people to do that. So.
Excellent. All right, look, Alex, thank you very much for your time. You've certainly opened my eyes enormously, and I'm sure it will help a lot of people watching this that have never been involved in it before. So thanks again.
My pleasure, Gary. Thanks for having me on, mate.